Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As promised, we are back on the 12 valve. Now, I thought about this pretty much the whole week leading up to this. We're gonna break this engine upgrade video up into two. Number one, it'll be easier to digest for you guys. Number two, easier to edit for me. So today we are tackling this 450 horsepower 12 valve going in that 1986 K3500. You guys already saw the video previous to this of all the parts that are going in this. Now comes the fun of installing them all. Again, got this out of a second gen donor truck, 160,000 miles. What we're doing currently and what you guys watched on the time lapse, one at a time, we pulled the pedestals off and we removed the rocker arms off. Now, on a 12 valve, because it is not an MLS, it's a composite gasket, you do not want to take all of the rocker pedestals off at once if you do not want to pull the head off. So, one at a time, we pulled them off. We pulled our valve train components off here, and we are swapping them over. What the purpose of this is this now took all of the pressure off of our push rods here, and we're going to be able to flip this motor standing up. We're going to tackle the oil pan, front timing case, which is this part. These things are kind of known to leak, especially where they meet down by the block right here. Just because this is Donald, and I know that he wants something that we're going to put in, not have to mess with. We're going to do an oil pan gasket. We're going to do a front case gasket, which is where the case meets the block. We're going to do a front cover gasket. That's this part here. And then we're also going to tackle the killer dowel pin. So for this procedure, out of the truck, it's very easy. We're going to stand the motor up. That will allow the tappets not to fall. Now, if you are going to attempt to do a timing case in frame, it's going to be the same, except instead of flipping the motor up on an engine stand, what you're going to do is replace all of these push rods with wooden dowels, tap them into the tappet, pull them up, and zip tie them together. There's plenty of videos on it, and that is how you can pull the cam in frame. Now, can it be done? Absolutely. Is it easier with it on the stand? Absolutely. That's kind of why we pushed Donald to do this job while it's on the stand. So we're going to go ahead and get this flipped up. You guys are going to watch the oil pan. Bunch of stuff start coming out. To bolt this head down to the block, we're just going to use exotics. I've had good luck with these stock to 500 horsepower. They're not a bad stud. I have seen some inconsistencies with the studs. I've also had problems where stuff's not threaded, stuff's missing. So if you're going to use exotic head studs, make sure you lay it out like I did. I counted everything, inspected everything. ARP, on a once in a blue moon, I've seen them have some issues, but exotic I've had some bad luck with. Now this comes with the 6 long, 6 short, and then in this box here is the 14. It comes with all of your 12-point sockets, which is nice. All the tools are included, including your Allen. They also even include a tap now. Then you have their lube, you get a sweet air freshener. Now on the pedestals, when you run a head stud, you have to machine your pedestals. I want to say it is, I think it's like 1/4 of an inch. Not sure. No, actually, you know what? Let's give her the old measure here. 200 thou. So that 200 thousandths, what that's doing is when you look at a head bolt, right? It's just the top of the head. When you have a stud, you essentially have a nut and a washer that protrudes from there versus the factory with the bolt. So what that step is doing is allowing you to run your factory valve cover with this head stud and it not interfere. Now, some guys I've seen, they will just run the nut, they'll forego the washer, and then you got to trim the underside of your valve cover. And if you look at this valve cover here, you see the ribbing. So you'll machine that down inside there. Do not run the washer and it'll work. Guys, when we were talking with Donald about this thing not leaking any oil, nothing like that, look what we found. That is the timing case gasket that actually pushed out. So on any Cummins motor, these are very susceptible gasket problems. On your late 4th gens, they have this really bad problem of sucking in right here or on the top right here, and you'll get an oil leak on a 4th gen. The 12 valves and stuff, it seems it's usually here or down here that they leak, and they'll get loose like kind of here. And what happens, in my opinion, is the bolts actually get loose from the vibration. Now, I know I'd make fun of all you 12 valve guys, but these motors are very clackety. Mix that with a subpar motor mount, you get a lot of vibration in these motors. And then also the dynamic timing, changing timing, yada yada. The more vibration you have, the easier it is for these bolts to work loose. So when we put this back together, the timing case, all that stuff, we're going to use Loctite 271. It's a red thread locker, very, very strong, holds up to heat well, and that is how you combat this problem. I also use a lot of RTV. If you don't subscribe to the RTV method, that is totally fine. I am a guy that doesn't want stuff ever coming back that I've worked on. And in these high vibration or high performance engines, RTV gasket, RTV red Loctite the bolts. I do that for the rear main housing, the front case, the front cover bolts. I do not do that for, that are just the shallow ones. If you're unfamiliar, on your front cover, whether you have a common rail or 12 valve, you'll have bolts like this, and you'll have long bolts. The long bolts actually bolt the cover through the case into the block. The short bolts that you can see here just bolt the case to the engine cover. On those ones, all I usually do is with the silicone, it grabs the bolt, kind of makes like its own little Loctite shock absorption. And that's also why I think the RTV is so important. It does dampen a little bit of the vibration, in my opinion. Now you guys can see here, we've exposed the front gear train, so to speak. Obviously we have our oil pump, idler gear, crankshaft, camshaft, P-pump gear, and the cam is what we're after. We're gonna pull the cam out. The cam is the only thing that stops us from being able to pull this front case off. Kind of a design flaw, I feel like, in Cummins, but you know, I'm sure engineers can argue about that all day long. Now, the only 2 bolts, and I even forgot about them, I just saw them looking at them. These 2 10 mils right here, make sure you pull those off, or if you start prying on this case, it will actually snap the case. Then you'll be looking for a new one. Now, if you look, Donald's killer dowel pin was ready to fall out. It is actually above the gear case. That's how far that thing has traveled. So for those of you guys that don't think the killer dowel pin is a real thing, it's right there. His was going to fall out very shortly. guys watch us pull the cam out, lift pump off, as well as our fuel filter. Timing case is off. We got that prepped. We're just letting the parts washer kind of heat up. And then we are going to tackle the tappet cover while the motor's sitting like this. I figured rather than just stalling out and waiting for the parts cleaner. Now, normally your tappet cover, you're doing it in frame. Normally it's not on a stand, so it is a little bit harder. But essentially, this is what needs to be removed other than this part. You need the P pump off. You need the lift pump, fuel filter, fuel heater. You're also going to need to take off some of the other accessories like the vacuum pump, stuff like that. Or sorry, not the vacuum pump, excuse me. The lift pump, rather. And then it'll be like this. Now, in this scenario here, we cannot flip this motor because if we did, all of the tappets would fall out. So we're going to install it in a non-conventional way. Again, if you have it on a stand, anything like that, then this is an awesome way to do it. If you're doing it in the truck, I apologize. We're not doing it that way. So we'll let Donald take this tappet cover off, and then once we get it off, I'll kind of show you guys the difference between the Keating and the stock. And if you guys look real close, you see all this dry cracking. Let me get you guys zoomed in here. See all that dry cracking in this gasket? That's what these are really known for, is getting really brittle and then they start to leak. You can actually see how the gasket is kind of pushed out a little bit. And generally the leak will start on the bottom, obviously. So that's why if you're gonna do a tappet cover, you know, we recommend the Keating one. That's the one I sell the most. There are other brands out there, like I've said, but the Keating one is my preferred. It installs great. I've never had a comeback. So that's what we're gonna get to. So here's your KDP. Okay, you guys can see where it was actually riding, right about there. So this is about where it was. Take your adjustable hammer. That's where it should sit. So that's how far. And this one, like, comes right out. A lot of times you'll smack them down, you can't get them out. This thing's pretty worn. So we got the tappet cover off, and you guys can see your tappets here. Again, you don't want any of those falling down. They do wear with the camshaft. And at this point, we could pull the push rods out, but I do want to kind of do a side-by-side comparison of the power-driven ones versus the stock ones, and just kind of show you guys why we selected certain parts for this build. Got this beautiful Keating machine tappet cover on here. We're gonna figure out the baffling, so to speak, for his crankcase vent, because now that he has lost the one from the factory, we are going to utilize one of those two ports to vent crankcase pressure. And if he doesn't like that, we can always plug it and do a dual valve cover up top. But for right now, we'll use what is provided. Moving right along, we'll probably get his rocker arm swapped over. And for those of you guys that do this, if you end up panicking or you forget which way the washer goes on, the washer, this rub washer here, no big deal. They just go on the outboard side, no worries. And if you think about it, you really wouldn't want it wearing on the snap ring that retains it. That's the easiest way to think about it. And there she be, installed, looking gorgeous. And pretty easy on these. The only silicone you need on these Keating ones, I put a couple of dabs in each corner to hold the gasket, and then a nice little bead where the gasket mates together. Okay, so after a little parts washer bath here, for those of you guys that don't have a parts washer, I don't know what to tell you other than that kind of sucks. Wire brush, maybe a little bit of elbow grease, but we just throw her in the old pressure cooker 9000 over there, and we let it clean up. So we have the oil pan rail cleaned up, we have the front timing case seal area cleaned up. I'm gonna put RTV on the block, then we'll put the gasket down, put RTV on the gasket, then set the case down. And like I said before, the case goes in with red Loctite. And because we're gonna be doing a bunch of other stuff, what I like to do is on a few of the timing case bolts that go through the cover here, I will actually install some of the bolts as well to kind of keep that gasket pinched against the block. And I'll show you guys once we pick it up. All right, guys, sorry about all that shaky camera work. Dave decided to bump it. But if you guys are unfamiliar with the Cummins rear main seal, front main seal problem that these have, they get this really nasty groove in them. You guys can, trust me, you could feel it. So you can change the depth of the seal on a standard size seal, or you can get this part number here. All right, PDD sells it, XDP sells it, a million different people sell it. And it comes with this wear ring. Now, if you guys are new to the channel for this build, we have done this many times with a engine build, but it comes with this steel ring right here. And basically this steel ring, you put some green Loctite on it, retaining compound, you beat the sleeve down, and it basically gives you like a fresh crank seal surface, and then you get the oversized rear main. So this is normally what we do on rear main and front crank seals. We'll do it on the front as well. And you guys can see here, we got the rear Keating billet freeze plug-in. The sides we'll do here in a little bit. Okay, so there is the rear main housing reinstalled with the wear sleeve. You guys can kind of see there. You want to make sure you tap that wear sleeve down quite a bit. The flex plate or flywheel usually has, especially if it's like a built clutch or a built flex plate like billet, it'll actually hit there, and then you'll basically break the retaining seal and push it down further, and then that's kind of loose. So you want to make sure you beat it down. I find just kind of giving it, I call it like hammer English in a way, to kind of push it down, but that's about where you want it. And now we're going to put our oil pan gasket on. Again, RTV the block, RTV the gasket, and then oil pan. Again, interstate may be coming in clutch here, and we'll get this oil pan thrown on. This guy's, this man is hands on, already destroyed his thumb. If you're not careful with the camshaft, pulling it out, you end up ripping your thumb skin off. Right as I was about to tell the Don not to put his finger there, he put his finger there and cut it up. So be careful. A lot of these engines are very sharp. So right now he's just torquing down the oil pan. You guys see that awesome RTV crush there. That's what you want. This is an engine that is not going to leak. I don't care what other people have told you in the past. RTV is your best friend with these. Don't get too carried away. It's just a single bead on the pan, then you put the gasket on, then you put a single bead on the gasket, and then you line it up. The only downside to doing it that way is if you accidentally kiss the block and it's not lined up, you're gonna have a little bit of a mess on your hands. But we're gonna get the oil pan painted, and then to wrap up this video, we'll flip the motor, and we're gonna get our exotic rocker arm pedestals changed over, put all those rocker arms on those pedestals there, and then we're gonna get our exotic head studs in here, as well as our actually we gotta do valve springs first. I'm putting the cart in front of the wagon here, so we'll do valve springs and then we'll do our head studs and our push rods to wrap this video up. Like we did in that parts video, we are using the Power Driven Diesel 60-pound overstock valve springs. Again, these are for, I would say, 90% of you guys that are modifying your 12 valves. They support about 4,000 RPM. Very cheap and very easy to install. Give you a little better valve train control on the higher RPM, and also if you have like compound turbos and stuff, they do all right. This is not what I would consider a racing spring, but like I said, 90% of y'all, this works good. And then to install these, we will remove one pedestal at a time, bolt our Torque Tech valve spring compressor tool on here. I'm gonna show Donald the first one, and what I'll do is I'll have him just hold the camera while I do the first one, and then I'm gonna let him do the other 6. Big thing with this, it's very easy for us right now because the motor is out of the truck. 5 and 6 in frame with the cowl, kind of a nightmare, but it can be done. To help facilitate this procedure, you want to TDC it. So basically TDC on number 1, you can do 1 and 6 together. You TDC number 2, you can do 2 and 5 together. TDC number 3, you could do 3 and 4 together. And every number adds up to 7. That's how you figure out a companion cylinder. So 1 and 6 travel together, 2 and 5 travel together, 3 and 4. So again, 1 plus 6 is 7, 2 plus 5 is 7, 3 plus 4 is 7. Good way to remember it. So to make this engine easier to spin over, because we don't have rocker arms activating the camshaft, we are going to just take the injectors out. And really, you don't even have to take them all the way out. You just need to like kind of pop them up ever so slightly, so that way the compression, instead of fighting you down here, just kind of helplessly snakes out of the injectors. 12 valve injectors, although very cheap and arguably affordable for most people, have this slight problem of getting crud in there. So these are very, very notorious for getting stuck, especially on high mileage rust buckets, which is pretty much every second gen anyway. So if you struggle with that and you have, let's say, a 4th gen laying around, these are M14, so you can actually use a lug nut. You put a lug nut on here, you take a pry bar, pop those suckers out, saves you a whole bunch of money from having to buy somebody's $40 overpriced tool that you don't need. Looks very similar to this, because at one point I also fell victim to a lack of common sense. Comes with this sleeve here, and then, like I said, a lug nut, legit. So at the end of the day, all you really need is a lug nut, and basically this pries against that. And this is a, or is it M14 or is it? Oh, sorry. Actually, your 2nd gen lug nuts will work on this procedure here. So 9/16 by 18. Thank you. So, and then you use this little coupler, slides, pull one of these off here, slides down over the injector, sits there, and then you run a washer, run this bolt down, pulls the injector out. However, if you do it like I'm telling you, you got that nut off yet? Okay. Here, I'll show you guys on this one here. Sorry for the shaky camera work here. We're doing the best we can. Take yourself a pry bar on this lug nut here, and you miss, out it goes. Now that we got the injectors out, I just ran a quick bore brush through there, blew it out with compressed air. It is a 12 valve, so if a little dirt gets in there, it's not going to hurt nothing, I promise you. You just don't want the big chunks of metal. And you want to look kind of down in there, make sure there's no pitting. The only one I see is it looks like that had some anti-seize on it, but if there's a lot of pitting in the bottom, you're going to want to essentially run kind of the thicker or medium copper. That gives you a little bit more crush to fill in the gap. The other thing you're going to want to do is take a look at your old injectors here and make sure all the copper seals are on there. So I see 1 there, 2 there, 3 there, 4 there, 5 there, 6 there. So you don't want a double copper. You know, it's not good for things. And also, depending on which copper you use, depends on the spacing of the injector. That is a topic far too controversial for this video though, but there is a time and a place for it, and that is why they exist. after you get your rocker arm pedestal off, you're going to go ahead and put this tool on. It's got 1 Allen. It's a 6mm Allen. You torque that down. It's got a nice alignment dowel. Then you basically run the impact here down until it exposes the keepers or locks. Locks, and then the retainers or keepers are on the outboard side. So we're going to take this magnet here. Once my help stops clowning around with my tools over here. It didn't even give me the right magnet, Donald. You're fired. I can't find my little magnet, so we're gonna make do with the big magnet. Essentially, you grab the two, and I always try to keep them with the same retainer. I don't even really think it matters. Honestly, on common rails, I usually don't even care. But on these old dinosaurs here, sometimes I guess it matters.
Oh my god.
You can use your...
You can't find that magnet.
Where is it? Oh, right there. That was my other prodigal child. There it is.
The worker of the business here.
Yeah. Anybody that watches my videos knows damn well Dave does not turn wrenches very fast. All right, once that's done, watch your ears. You spin this all the way off. Okay, these are your factory retainers. Again, you can upgrade those if you want into the trash where they belong. You're gonna come over here and grab 2 of the 60-pound valve springs. Back in the day, here, can you hold this? Back in the day, Pioneers, when they first put exhaust brakes on these, it was actually not uncommon. If you have a factory exhaust brake truck or like a Banks kit, it actually comes with a stiffer valve spring just on the exhaust, because heaven forbid he does anything all the way. So then you do this. You want to make sure you kind of line everything up. It will eventually jam itself home. See? But go down with it like that, and then everyone always puts like grease on these and stuff. If you just kind of stuff them in there, drop them in, make sure they're oriented the right way, like so. No, not like that. Where's that little magnet? Oh my god, Dave, where's the little magnet? Okay. So, not upside down like I just did. You want to do them right side up. And I would caution you on the push rod holes. You can get stuff down there. I'll be the first one to tell you though that as long as the push rod lengths look the same both ways, just leave it in there for the next time. But as David can attest, the first time you drop a keeper in a motor, you kind of want to find it. I always kind of like to know where it goes, but sometimes it's exciting just to kind of let it find its own home. All right, and get in close here, Donald. You just kind of want to watch those blocks as they come up. They should kind of sit right in that groove like that. And there is a set of 60-pound valve springs installed with your factory retainers. And then I don't know if it actually matters or not. I don't know, maybe I just, because I like to use hammers, I always like to kind of give them a little smack, make sure the locks are in the groove of the valve, and take the tool off. Once we take this tool off, we'll put the pedestal on, that one head stud, the upgraded locating bolt. We'll put our new push rods in. And while we do that, let me show you guys here a little bit. Cut this packaging open. Shout out to PDD Manufacturing on this pack job. Back when I used to work there, we'd always have valve springs blow out, or push rods blow out of the bag. Clearly Meyer's been making changes over there. I'm for it. So we'll take our push rods out of the bag. And if you guys look at these push rods, okay, they're actually the same outer diameter and they have the same profile. If you are running a 24 valve style tappet, this actually will change to a 24 valve style and you'll get what's called a hybrid push rod. The reason why 12 valve push rods are actually a little bit shorter, I think. Hold on. So yeah, 12 valve push rods, a little bit shorter. This is a 24 valve push rod, whether it's a VP or a common rail. And they'll change it to this style ball end, but this length. And that allows you to run an aftermarket cam with the bigger lifters in a 12 valve. Now, the big difference here, this one's a lot heavier. This is a 93 wall. I believe this is 70 wall on here. And then you also have the much nicer ends on here as well. Now, one problem with a 12 valve is if you look at this push rod hole here, all right, it's quite small. Now, what will happen is if you get these 7/16 style push rods, which are the next size up, you'll actually get this really weird rub mark right there. You see where the oil is kind of there? It's normal because as the rocker arm actuates, let me find the hole here. I promise I can. I got 2 trophies. But anyway, once it's in there, it'll actually kind of rub on the head a little bit. So we used to get a lot of guys that would call in and be like, oh, I think my push rods or whatever. They are actually rubbing on the head. The debris will get caught by the oil filter. Eventually they will stop self-clearancing themselves and you'll be ready to rock on. The reason why we went with these is Donald's power goals of 450 with just a 60-pound valve spring. These will be more than sufficient. And if he does want to upgrade to maybe compounds down the road, these will still work decently well. If you're past 750 horsepower, you're gonna wanna jump up into the stage 2s, which come with a little bit thicker profile. And that's about it. We'll put these 2 push rods on, a little bit of engine assembly lube there and there, drop them in and get our new pedestals put on. Okay, so we have our exotic pedestal on the right, our stock on the left. If you guys look, this is actually how your rocker arms get oil. Oil comes up through this hole, goes in through this hole, goes through the pedestal and comes out these rocker arm shafts. Now this one's not bad. There's another one in this engine that looks a lot worse that I'll show you. But what's common is guys will not get this dowel seated into the block. And you'll gouge this dowel out. You'll also get some wear on this trunnion. If you look real close, focus, you'll see that galling there. These ones from Exotic don't seem to have too much galling problems. I think it's because they opened up this oil channel right here a little bit more. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but it's about twice the size of that. And yeah, that's how they do it. Now to align these, pretty easy, but again, something guys kind of mess up quite often. Let me get this old girl to focus here. You want to make sure this is seated in, and then you have this alignment bolt hole right here. You run that bolt through, and that is how you make sure they are tight. Now, we're gonna do this in firing order. That way Donald and I can set the valve lash as we go through. If you change push rods, rocker arms, valve springs, anything like that, you need to reset your valves to 10 and 20 thousandths. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Who am I kidding? Gentlemen. Donald got all this done. You guys watching the time lapse. This is his first 12 valve. He's done these on common rails, so kind of the same concept, and we got them all ironed out. We have replaced all of our pedestals with the exotic ones now. Again, disclaimer, it's kind of 50-50. I've seen this work, seen it not work, so do this at your own risk. We're going to go ahead and replace his head bolts with head studs one at a time, just like you do with a common rail. Again, this is not something that we're taking in on a customer. This is a buddy build. So we're just going to try it this way. Worst comes to worst, we'll get a nice up close and personal with his head gasket. But what we are going to do is pull a head bolt out, put that stud in, torque it to 100 foot-pounds till all 26 are done. Once that's done, we will follow the torque procedure, starting in the middle, working our way out to 125 foot-pounds of final torque. I'm going to let Donald just do that, and shouldn't be too bad, maybe 20-30 minutes. And once that is complete, we'll probably end this video. Okay, that is going to be a wrap on this segment. We tackled all of the oil leaks and the valve train, as well as the head clamping. You guys watched us do an oil pan, a front timing case, a front timing cover, which we'll cover that in the last video. We'll do our KDP in the next video as well. I just spotted that. Want to make sure we get that fixed. We did our Keating tappet cover. Then up here, we did these PDD Stage 1 push rods, as well as the PDD 60-pound valve springs, our exotic pedestals, and our exotic head studs. Again, a 1x1, not the recommended method, but it can work. And then moving around on the back, we also did our rear main seal with a wear sleeve, and our Keating rear billet freeze plug, and our Keating front billet freeze plug. So again, guys, exotics are what you make them. I don't necessarily recommend them to a ton of customers, but if that's all they can afford, then that's what I'll sell them. Little tech tip for you: if you use ARP lube on the exotic studs, it, like, the American lube mixes with like the Chinese cylinder head stud, and it actually makes it a little stronger from what I've seen. So little tech tip there: ARP lube is the go-to. But yeah, hopefully you guys liked this video. A lot of time lapses, a lot of labor. Shout out to Donald. He really put in a lot of effort of his own on this, and that was very refreshing to see. So like this one, drop your comment down below, subscribe to see the rest of this build. Again, this is going in a 1986 K3500. So you want to be there. As always, guys, I'll catch y'all on the next one.